You know, Henry Ford used to say that the air is full of good ideas. They are knocking you in the head all the time. Now, I think everyone in Washington knows there are a lot of good ideas knocking us in the head. We haven't yet decided to open the door and let them in. And we have not yet determined that we've got to get beyond politics as usual in order to come together and chart a new course for America. You know, as you may have heard, I've been doing some traveling around the country, and what I hear from Americans is frustration, some discouragement, a sense that we are not living up to our potential as a nation, a yearning for leadership and citizenship that begins to chart a new course. I don't think Americans are looking for some kind of group hug bipartisanship. I think they're looking for leaders who can get back to reality-based policymaking. And they're looking for leaders and citizens who will reassert our shared basic American values. And one of those values is pragmatic problem solving. You know, America has always been the can-do nation, a country that brought out the best in all of us, that motivated people to dream big and then chart a course that practically could achieve those dreams. We need what Ted calls a new social contract and what I call a new middle-class bargain among business, government, and the hardworking families who are our greatest national strength. I grew up in the middle class, in the middle of America, in the middle of the last century. So by definition, I'm middle of the road. And I was raised to believe that if I did my part, which for a child was working hard, getting a good education, that the sky was the limit. You know, my late father used to have one of his many slogans to live by was work hard, play hard, and don't confuse the two. And I had no doubt that if I did my part, my country would be there for me. It would be on my side. It would give me opportunities. And I just grew up believing that, and I believe it still. Now, it won't surprise anyone when I say that a new basic bargain has got to include quality, affordable health care for every American. We have to provide health care that gives every child a good start. We have to find a way to provide health care that keeps our economy competitive. The states have had to take on health care because the federal government has shown no leadership at all to take action against the challenges of rising costs and shrinking employer coverage. What can we do to improve access to health care right now? I've been working in the Senate to give every child in America access to the Children's Health Insurance Program, the so-called SCHIP program that I worked on during the Clinton administration to be able to provide the framework for insuring children. We still don't insure 9 million of our children, and more children every year under this administration's policies are falling out of coverage. So I think that there's a consensus developing, at least among the Democrats and certainly among some Republicans, that the first step we have to take is to cover all children. That is the most basic of our obligations under the basic bargain. I've also introduced a plan with several Senate colleagues to help small businesses afford coverage that mirrors the insurance that senators get. Now, making the promise and potential of world-class health care available to everyone is, for me, a basic building block of the 21st century American bargain. And the next is the single widest door to a middle-class lifestyle, namely education beyond high school. But it's time we go into it with our eyes open, because as my story about the engineer whom I met in Iowa illustrates, education alone may no longer be sufficient, but education for an individual is necessary to be competitive in the global economy. It is past time to open that doorway to college wide enough for everyone able and willing to walk through it. We still have too many young people who cannot afford to start, cannot afford to finish. I see it all the time. If you look at our college graduation rates, they have fallen from the highest in the world over the last 6 years to 7th. That's a surprise to people because we always look out over the world and we know we have a great system of higher education. It's flexible, it's open, it's second chance. You know, you can start it at any time in your life, basically, unlike the systems in other countries. But we're not keeping pace with our competition globally. New America's proposal for a college access contract addresses two of the obstacles that are holding students back. It would end the penalty that lower and middle income students currently pay for working while they attend school, and it would hold lenders accountable for the rates and fees they charge. I've also proposed a new American Dream Grant, a successor to the land grants that built America's great public university system, beginning with President Lincoln more than a century ago. It would award colleges additional funds based on the number of students who attend and graduate every year. It would also demand greater accountability from institutions for their quality and graduation rates. And it would combine our patchwork of tax breaks for college into a single refundable tuition and training credit. And I propose changing our tax and eligibility laws to reward, not punish people who are working to put themselves through school. Now, in education, experts tell us that the earliest years of a child's life sets the stage for all that follows. That's true for how children learn, and it's true for whether or not they believe they are valued members of society. Every child should be born with a stake in our country, not just a Social Security number. I've supported something like New America's Baby Bonds proposal for years now because it's a message to every family that as they invest in their kids, America will invest in them as well. We can give every child a vested interest in our financial system, reverse our terribly low national savings rate, and give every child an opportunity to begin adulthood with money in the bank. You know, this actually works. This is one of these evidence-based policies that we can look to and see how well it functions. In Britain, for the last 5 years, every new baby has received about $500 to start his or her own savings accounts. Family members, friends, even charities can contribute to that small account. And already Britain's Child Trust Fund says that the number of British families who are saving for their children's futures has doubled. I'm looking to introduce legislation that would create the best baby bonds for our American children. Sometimes I think the simplest big idea that people need to hear is that times have changed and our institutions need to change along with them. That's true of health care, education, and our social safety net. It doesn't mean that we give up on our obligations to one another. It just means that we rethink, we reinvent, we recast how we fulfill them. You know, there's also a troubling strain of sort of fatalism in a lot of our debate, particularly over the last 6 years. Why can't we deal with our energy crisis? It would wreck our economy. End of debate. Well, no, in fact, it would help us create new jobs, and we have to be willing to move forward on that agenda. Why can't we deal with health care? Well, look what happened to Hillary Clinton when she tried. Nobody wants to walk into that swampland again. Well, no, actually, we learned a lot about what would and would not work, and that's how you make better policy. Learn from experience. What's that old saying? Good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. I mean, there's a lot that we can learn moving forward about how to reach our goals of universal health care. You know, some people are cut out for college and some people aren't, so it doesn't matter that we don't increase Pell Grants and that we change the vast majority of our scholarship aid from need-based to merit-based, and thereby cutting out the motivated B and C students. If people really wanted to do it, they'd figure out a way to do it on their own. No, actually, it is now more expensive for a middle-class family to send a child to college than it was 30 years ago, which is undermining the American dream. So we have to first overcome this un-American attitude that we somehow can't solve our problems. And probably the biggest idea of all is that America has always been about the future. That's who we are. Some have actually criticized us, even made fun of us, because we don't spend a lot of time wringing our hands about the past. On an individual level and through our society, we are always focused on the future. I want us to get there again. And one of the ways we do that is by sparking this conversation about the best, biggest, most practical ideas we can follow that will lead us into the future that we want for ourselves and our children.